But
Put all that booze money into
They all give me shit when I say stuff like that. It's not fair.
Shut
really?
up, Woody. Go buy some more alcohol.
See?
You've already lived your life. You can't help shit. Just go buy alcohol and drink with us, all right?
Yeah, Woody, you're on the final lap.
It's downhill from you.
when I go to YouTube parties, that's where I get a lot of shit for. People like have a beer. I'm like, I'll pass,
No,
and I'll
that
hand it to one of
sucks.
my friends. I'm like, but like, do people like take it as an offense when I don't
Yeah.
drink?
No,
with them?
here's
I'm like,
here's what you say. Here's what you say. Oh, I can't. I'm driving.
oh, there
Oh,
you go.
yeah.
No, nobody will
Or-
question you.
Even though I Uber to 90% of these things. so
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just-
did they know?
I have a lot of sober friends in the music industry. They drink seltzer water or like carbonated water, and then they just put a
Yeah.
lime in there, and nobody ever
Yes.
goes
And
like,
some
"Hey,
ice,
dude, why aren't you?
some
Yeah,
ice,
why aren't you
and
drinking?
drink
Fuck
from
you."
a straw.
They
and
taught
then
us
drink
that
out of
in
Just
high
give an
school.
excuse that doesn't make sense. So they're like, want a beer? It's like, oh, no, I'm good.
It works for Kevin Spacey.
And so I started working for this company. They sent me down to their like main city where they train all the new people, and they give you a roommate in these situations, and they pair you up with a random guy. I was 22 at the time, I think, just turned 22. This guy was like 26, 27, Mormon, already had 3 kids, and there's an old adage. When I lived in Idaho, I learned a lot of Mormon adages. And one of them about Mormons is never go fishing with one Mormon because they'll drink all your beer. Always bring a second Mormon so that they won't drink in front of each other. And so I'm like trying to get ready for my first job and training and stuff. And I'm like, man, I have no perspective. I'm just worried about not getting something right. And so we get in there that night. I'm like ready to buckle down and study the little book and everything. I'm in the room, and he comes in and he's like, hey, you're Taylor, right? And I'm like, yeah, you must be Andy. He's like, yeah, real nice to meet you, man. Real nice to meet you. So where are you from? We have this little talk, and he's like, yeah. So what do you want to do tonight? I was like, we're on a work thing. It was my first ever work trip. And I was like, I assume you do work all the time on these. I'm trying to learn so I don't look like a fool tomorrow. And he's like, nah, I'm sure we'll be fine. Listen, you want to like go to a bar or something? And I was like, not particularly. It's already like 9 p.m. And he's like, how about we do, there's a liquor store across the street. Let's go to the liquor store and we'll get a couple things. I was like, all right, I'll have a few beers tonight. And so I go over to the liquor store with him. I grab a 6-pack and I'm just waiting at the front for like 5-6 minutes, which is a long time to wait, standing there with a guy you don't know. And eventually I'm like, where the fuck is this motherfucker? And I start walking around, and he is like picking up every bottle of liquor, like fascinated with it. Like, oh my God, like the forbidden fruit for this guy. He loads up a mini cart with, we're there for 4 nights, and he has enough booze for us to go on a 3-week bender. Both. He has no idea how much this. He loads it up, and he's coming to the front, all fucking smiles. This guy, he's like, "You got all your stuff?" I'm like, "Got like 1 6-pack of Bud Light." He's like, "All right." So we check everything out, go back to the room. I start like drinking a beer while I'm doing everything. I turn around after maybe 15-20 minutes. He's drank half a bottle of vodka by himself, already blackout drunk. And this guy stayed blackout drunk for the next 4 days. He was showing up to like the work things drunk. He was out of fucking control. We would finish something up. Turns out Mormons get degenerate as shit once they get a little liquor in them. Maybe that's a rule. There was one night he was begging me. He's like, "Come on, man, it's our last night here. Come on, let's go to the hot tub at the hotel." And I'm like, okay, let's go to the hot tub. He brings the free glass thing you use to rinse your mouth out next to the sink, and a bottle of Jack Daniels that he sets next to the hot tub. And we're sitting there with like 2 other normal people, and I don't even think I brought a beer because it wasn't allowed. And he gets wasted here, and he spends the entire last night and the second to last night vomiting and keeping me awake until like 4 a.m. And it was over and over. And at the end of it, he's like talking to me like we experienced a Hangover 2 style adventure. It's like, man, crazy times, right? And it's like, I haven't been drunk the whole time we've been here. I've had like 3 beers at a time. And he's like, nah, dude, we did crazy stuff. Anyway, dude, see you later, bro. Reheard from him because he worked in a different state, different area. He had to go to rehab for alcoholism, which apparently started on that little trip he and I had. So I got to watch the beginning of a flower blossom of addiction. Another thing about rental car places, do not buy the insurance if you have your own insurance. They're going to try and scare you because they tell the salespeople to scare the shit out of you. And what I discovered working out in Idaho with this, where there's a lot of Hispanic people who, like the first generation, don't speak English, and so they have their kids talk to you. The only people who buy insurance are people who don't need it, and the only people who don't buy insurance are people who do need it. Where, like, I can't count the number of times I'd be like at a fucking airport location, and some person would come up, like some Mexican lady, and then her very young, like 7-year-old kid, and I'd be like, "Hey, how can I help you, ma'am?" And then the kid would have to say, like, "We want a car." And I'd be like, "That's great. Can you tell your mom that I need her license and her credit card?" And she hands me a license and a very dented debit card, and I have to be like, "No, this is a debit. It's a debit card. You need a credit card." She's like, "No, it's credit. I use it credit all the time." It's like, yeah, you can hit credit when you're buying a Diet Coke at a 7-Eleven, but when you're renting a $75,000 Yukon, we can't run it as that. You have $75 in your account. And like the number of times I didn't try and sell like rich people any insurance. Like I was the fastest at writing the tickets because I'd be like, "You got insurance, brother?" You'd be like, "Yeah." It's like, "You're fucking perfect. Fucking good, dude. Should I buy the insurance?" No. Like, get out of here. I don't get commission for this. Why the fuck would I rip you off? But then when there would be like a Hispanic woman who comes up, I'm like, "Ma'am, please. If you wreck this," Javier, can you tell your mom what I'm saying right now? If you wreck the Yukon, that's an $80,000 car. 8,000 car.
That's not.
Yeah, 80,000 car. So if you wreck this car, you have to pay for the whole thing. The whole car. Javier, you're obviously you're looking at the vending machines. Javier, tell your mom, the whole car. See, yeah, whole car. It's like, so if you pay $20 extra a day, if you wreck it, you don't pay anything. But if you wreck it, your life and your children's lives are ruined. Just pony up and do it. They would never buy the insurance, and it felt like 10% of the time they'd come back and get absolutely fucked. The people who would buy it were like rich white yuppies who already had fantastic AAA or something and would just drop $20 for no reason a day on it. So never buy that shit. There was so much tomfoolery and nonsense. Always check your contracts from those people because they will sneak shit in order to get sales. Like they will tell you, there was one skeevy motherfucker that I worked with that was the worst about this. The forestry registry came in out of Idaho where I was. Apparently that's where the biggest conglomerate of these firefighters come from. And then they all moved from there down to fight the wildfires in California. And they had set contracts. But because we worked on a DOS system, a DOS prompt system, we could manipulate the contracts. And so there was this one bitch who, Amy, if you're out there, I hope life is going terrible for you. I hope it sucks. I hope you got divorced after you left us. And so, because what she did is they have like sales goals. And if you hit a certain thing, they incentivize us by like, you can just go home. You can go home if you want to do that. This bitch would take $20,000 in sales and apply it to a forest registry contract. And those guys don't give a shit. They'll sign whatever. And so then if I'm returning a car on the return lane and it pulls up that what was supposed to be a $1,200 rental for 2 weeks to the forest registry is actually a $35,000 fee. Do you know how upset a group of dirty firefighters get when you tell them they owe $35,000 for that? They get so upset. And then I have to call like the fire commissioner of it and tell him, "I'm so sorry. I got to refund $35,000, the cost of a nice fucking Optima that they already paid us." And then I get yelled at. That shit was the fucking worst. That job sucked. Another thing they would fucking do is I worked at the airport many times going all the way to 2 a.m. And you'd be there with the manager and you would run out of cars, just out. And I would have 70 reservations at 1 a.m. by myself, standing at the counter with my little fucking tie like a retard. And I would just hordes of people coming down the escalator to come to the rental place. And I'm just like trying to amp myself up like it's game 7, like, whew, all right, you're going to get yelled at by at least 75 of those people. It's okay. It's okay. Then they all get in line.
It's 75 out of 70.
75 out of 77, they're going to yell at me.
Okay.
Some of them have wives.
Some of them have wives there. None of them, though, because they're getting in. They get in at 2 a.m. Most of them off of planes that were so delayed. They just want their car and they just want to go home.
And they have a reservation, but you didn't reserve one.
They have a reservation, and every time, 15 minutes before that plane lands, the manager would go, "It seems like you got a good handle of things, Taylor. I'm out." And they would leave, just to be me there. And they would come in, and you talk to the first guy in line, and he's like, slaps his fucking credit card and license on the table, not pleased. Boom. Reservation Thompson. We're out of cars, Mr. Thompson. What? I have a reservation. The best you could hope for in that situation is that the guy would say the Seinfeld line and I would go, but like that was the best you could hope. Usually you would get screamed at, berated. They'd ask for your name. They'd like call and complain. I'd have to try and be like, the reason they did this is because they're trying. By the end of my tenure at this company, I was like totally like Stockholm syndrome with the shitty customers. I'd be like, we're all in this together, guys. We're all in this together. I'm so sorry. I hate this as much as you do. I make $30,000 a year to get screamed at. I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all. And just doing that.
You want to rent my car? I could use the cash.
What you get to do, what you get to do then is I have to like lean over and talk to the Hertz guy and be like, Tom, please, can you get some of these people going? He's like, Taylor, I'm so sorry, dude. We got like 2 cars and I got to save them. And so I would have to stand there until like 4:30 in the morning with every one of these people, calling cab companies to take them where they need to go, then paying for it over the phone with the corporate card. And then after one of the companies runs out of cabs, I have to find a new cab company for all these people. It was the fucking worst job. It sucked. You get yelled at constantly.
I would be so mad.
It was awful. The only good part of that job is that if somebody came in hot and like you could even whiff just the slightest of alcohol, you could shut it down. Nope, not renting to you. You smell like whiskey. You smell like, and it was only a couple times that a person would come in like stumbling drunk and yell at you because you wouldn't rent them the car they wanted. Also, there's a fundamental misunderstanding about how reservations work. You do not reserve the car. You're not reserving anything.
That's how reservations work, though.
No, for everywhere else. Yeah.
Rental
car companies, they shouldn't call it a reservation. They should call it a consideration.
They should call it a prepayment because that's what it is. You're just signing.
Woody and I showed up at a hotel once, and they'd given our reservation away.
Oh yeah.
And I think we said, "I don't think you know how a reservation works."
Yeah, I think we did.
How a reservation works. Do you know how many times I wanted to leap over that counter and strangle someone to death for saying that Seinfeld line for the 100th time that day? And it was infuriating because the fucking
Why didn't you put a sign up that said all out of cars?
We would, but there's still 80 reservations for the top of the hour, and they still think that when they hop off the plane, they're getting it.
Yeah. If there was no more cars, but I had a reservation, I would think you only have the reserved cars left.
I'm sure you have the vocabulary to make a sign that explains that.
These people are not wanting to read.
Yeah, but if you could just peel off 20% of them,
I think I'd still need to hear it. I think I'd still be like, well, wait, I have a reservation. Because I know how reservations were supposed to work.
Yeah.
I make a sign. All reservations are null and void. We are out of cars. 0 with the word 0 cars.
You were talking about shooting guns out of your pickup truck, though, and that reminded me when I lived in Idaho, a guy I worked with was really, really into guns. And he was like, hey, dude, let's go out shooting sometime. I know this really awesome place. And like, he's from there. He knew every area. He's like, it's really not that far, but it's secluded as shit. And it feels like you're in the middle of nowhere, even when you hop back on the highway and you're at a Hardee's in 2 seconds. It's like, oh, cool. Let's do that. And so he and I and a couple of his other friends I didn't know get in his truck one day after we get off work, and he supplied all his guns. He had a nice collection. He was like, doing that gun thing, which is very wholesome and nice. As we're driving, he's like, and you're gonna love this one because XYZ, and I have this accessory on it, and this and that, and he's one of those just so excited to do it. And I was like, oh, this sounds awesome, dude. So we get out there, start loading everything up. He's explaining all the guns I'm not familiar with, and we start just popping these little targets, these little foam targets that we brought with us. And then we take a shotgun out, and we have like a self thrower. So I'm heaving up clays and shooting them, having fun. And then after maybe 30, 35 minutes, this like little, you know, those tracker cars, those like old Ford trackers. They're like, short, like little crappy ones.
Geo,
but it was
Chevy made it or something. Yeah,
it looked like a Geo Tracker, but not quite that shitty. And it had like a little like light on top of it. And it was driving out there, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And he kind of just sat there and watched us for a bit. And the guy was like, "It's no big deal. Like I'm sure lots of people come out here to just shoot guns." And in my head, then I'm like, "We're the only people I've seen shooting." Matter of fact, I don't see anyone else out here. After a couple more minutes, the guy drives over and gets out. He's got like a security slash almost like army looking is what my first thing was. And I was like, what the hell is this? And he walks up and he addresses my friend who like does that. Like, you know, he's the guy who's brought us there. So he like goes to meet him out a few feet, and the guy's coming up and the guy's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, we're shooting guns. And he goes, yeah. You're doing it at an Air Force testing field. What are you doing here? And I was like, oh no. Like, am I going to get in trouble for this? I thought we were going to a fun
this
little
is a minefield.
You know, it's Air Force testing field apparently is what it was. And the guy was very cool. My friend who brought me there is like, "I'm so sorry, man. I've been out here like a dozen times before. I thought it was fine." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess a lot of people do. We don't see them that much. There's cans everywhere, but you got to get out of here. You can't be shooting guns on an Air Force base, basically. And even if it's in the middle of nowhere, because Air Force bases are apparently ginormous.
Huge.
And so, yeah, then we just hopped in and left. And I just felt lucky that we didn't get like a ticket or something or whatever it would be.
Have I told you guys about the I know I told it on my channel years and years ago, but about the Poop Bandit story?
Tell it again.
The Poop Bandit? Okay, so there's this, it's not me, but there's this kid, the Bathroom Bandit, they call him at our high school. This kid, this weirdo, and I was the only one who 100% knew, to my knowledge, what was happening, who was doing it, because I almost caught him on accident one day early in the morning. This kid, this weird kid, he would go into school sometimes really early, and he would go into the bathroom, shit into a paper towel, and then write on the wall Joker-esque messages like, "Ha ha 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 ha, you'll never catch me," in shit on the wall or on the inside of stalls, and like clues like "getting closer?" question mark, like things like that. To the point that our morning announcements, they had to say, like, "To whoever has been defacing our bathrooms, please, if you know anything about this person, report it to the principal. You won't be told out." But the time I figured out it was him, and this happened at all times throughout the day. It wasn't always the morning. I don't know how we never got caught. You'd go to class, come back out before lunch. I need to use the restroom. Walk in, ha ha ha. Like, there's shit on the wall. Like, when did this ghost of a person find it? Like, it got to the point that teachers were logging your bathroom exits. And I got into school really early when he decided to strike one day. And I was about to walk into the bathroom, and this kid walked out, and he knew me. And so he was like, "Oh, Taylor, I wouldn't go in there if I were you. It seems a certain bandit has struck again." And then he walked away, and I'm like, "Oh, Mike, I knew it was you. Like, you bastard." And so,
Mike, shit bandit.
Yeah, Mike was the bathroom bandit.
Did he ever get caught?
No, he knew when to stop. It was an Ocean's 11 style, you know, calculated mayhem he was running there. But that's
that's hilarious.
The poor
That's
janitor,
great.
he became so sullen and downfallen every time he had to go in there and clean the shit.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Oh, that's so funny.
It's a
Although I can't
asshole
imagine-
move.
I can't hang with your story. Like I don't know.
Shit bandit.
Yeah, the bathroom bandit.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I went to my girlfriend. We did our Easter with my family, and then I went to her Easter with her family. And part of her Easter is going to church. And so I was like, she's like, "Will you go to church with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I don't care." And so I realized it was the first time I'd been to church in 10 years. 10 years I hadn't been to church. It was the first time I'd gone.
You heathen,
And so-
you.
I know, I'm a piece of shit. And so we went to church and everything was fine. Like, it was what I expected from a church, pretty boilerplate. And so I As I was watching the sermon, though, I realized, like, if I were really unethical, I could do that shit easy peasy. I could so easily rile people up about the word of the Lord. Press those buttons. Are you feeling guilty? Well, I'm not guilting you, but you feel a little guilty now, aren't you? Oh yeah, like little jabs, little religious
Does
things.
he do
like,
it with the enthusiasm you just did? Because I've been to church and it's boring as get out.
No,
it's terrible.
They don't even do it with that sort of charisma. Like I could start a church and have Christian followers a few weeks from now. It would be easy as shit. Like all you have to do is be charismatic and bring just enough of God's hammer down while still offering the promise of redemption. Like it would be so fucking easy. And it really just came because I haven't been to a church since I was fucking, like late teens. And going there was like, oh my God, now I get it. Now I get the whole fraudulent, false prophet kind of pastor person who does this to make money, because it is so fucking easy to do this. Like it would be so easy.
The last time I went to, we gave church a chance when Hope was little, and maybe a lot of families do this, but let's see what this is all about. Maybe community, whatever. And it sucked so hard. I've talked about it on the show before. They worked super hard to get our money. I don't know if I talked about the sermons. That guy must have been over 80. And everyone was just in love with this guy. I can't even understand his words. He can hardly pronounce things. I don't think he's making complete points. I don't know if he's planned this before he got there or just went up and sort of winged it with English-sounding sounds laced together into nonsense. I never got anything from it. I just knew they were taking attendance, and we weren't into it. The guy was awful. And I'm looking around like, am I the only one that sees this? This guy doesn't speak. This guy has no charisma. I didn't learn any lessons. If he at least made me feel warm about the experience. Like, yeah, you know what? Church is my weekly like soul filler back-upper hour. Like if that happened, maybe I'd be into it. But no. It was like, this fucking corrupt fuck can't speak. All they do is ask for like direct deposit transfer numbers. This is not the organization I want to be part of.
Oh yeah, and even like having not been to church in 10 years, like as he was given the sermon on Easter and all that, I was just like, oh yeah, I know what he's gonna say next. I know the plan. I know what you're gonna say. I know. Do you have direct deposit? You're coming in. Yeah.
Can your financial institution find the way into my pocket?
I am tax exempt. Yeah,
that's what he does. The 360s with his hands there.
The Democrats would get smashed, but I would vote for this policy if they were like, you know what? Churches are for-profit businesses. They sell bullshit for cash. You can tax that. I'd be so on board.
And the whole reason they don't do it is because they're like,
what can be considered a church. Because if this little organization here could be considered a church, then keep it up. This
ties in to something I wrote down on my topic sheet for the evening. Is that the Satanic Church just achieved tax exemption from the U.S. government. And if they can do it, why can't we? Why can't we make the case that we're preaching our own word?
Do you believe that Kyle would like another car?
Do you believe that Taylor wants his mortgage paid off? Do you believe it?
There's no early payoff penalty. That's right. No penalty. Can you feel the power? Can you
feel the no early payment penalty? Can you feel it?
That's because it ain't there.
Can you feel my financial security improving with every dollar you drop in that plate? Can you feel it? I can feel it. Do you feel it, sir? Are you feeling the Lord in you? Are you feeling the Lord in you?
Today?
That's the way you would do it to manipulate, especially, is you would call out individual people, put them on the spot. Yes. They'll either have to fake it or not fake it.
Every dollar you give to PKA is 2 more in your pocket. That's right. Woo! You come right back to you.
Every dollar you give, you get a bottle of holy water. Now you pour that holy water all over your bills and you throw those bills away because those collectors, they ain't coming They ain't coming.
No,
No, this is literally a thing. I think it was like something Popov was his last name. He was this
They make it
scam
vodka.
artist piece of fucking shit who took advantage of people who just wanted a better life for themselves. And he would sell people holy water.
Yep.
And then he would have testimonials where it was someone like, I ordered Jimmy Popov's holy water and all my bills disappeared. They started sending me checks in the mail instead. All my power's free now. And like literally that level of lies and duplicitousness with these pastors. Like what these people do isn't just not Christian, it's fucking evil. Those pastors out there, if Christianity is real, guess what? You're burning in the lowest depths of hell. The lowest depths. You're a false prophet. You're a piece of human shit.
That's
Like,
how
you're
I feel
worse
about
than anyone.
policemen that rape and like do bad shit too. Like
Luckily, all this shit's made up. So buy Kyle's miracle water today.
when
It
you
may say Dasani, but it's got the word of the Lord.
it's just you don't even repackage it.
It's just Dasani.
Are you cursed with pepperoni nipples so large and disgusting you can't bear to look at them? You just put a little Kyle's miracle Dasani on them big old nasty nipples and they'll shrink down and be sexy. And
I am not
pretty.
part of that. I have nothing to do with that.
That's right. What is not attached to the big pepperoni nipples? He got
Do you
nothing to
have
do
a
with it.
3.5-inch dick hard? Well, then why don't you try fucking a bottle of Dasani holy water? Your dick will get so big it'll get stuck in the bottle, so pull it out quick. Oh, Lord, I feel the dick growing energy inside of me. The Lord your God, Jesus Christ, had the biggest penis the world has ever seen.
Your dick would get stuck in the bottle if it worked. You'd have a real problem
That's
on
how
your
you
hands.
know it worked.
Well, that's part of the joke.
That's right.
That's right. I want to keep doing pastor voice.
Oh, your dick will be so big and your nipples so tiny, you won't believe your eyes.
Does your bitch have some big ass nipples? Put your hand up. Put your hand up if your bitch has a big ass nipple. I see a lot of hands. I see a lot of hands in the house tonight. You want some Dasani holy water? Get those nipples little. Say, Lord, give me those little nipples. Lord, give me those little nipples.
Give it to me, Lord. Itty bitty nipples, give them to me, Lord.
Ghost nipples. Itty bitty ghost nipples.
Those nipples in the house, Lord. I feel the power of the Holy Ghost.
No, these are Holy Ghost nipples. Oh, that's so dumb.
I don't care if it hurts your feelings.
Let's get Woody's dad on the show about our interpretation of this epistemology.
It would be me. I wish we could do that. Because you're probably thinking that because his position is ridiculous, according to me, that you'd bowl him over in any kind of debate. But you wouldn't. He's really smart. And he knows everything about the Bible. Like he.
Oh, I bet. Like,
yeah,
no doubt.
I don't think
all my little tongue-in-cheek things. He would beat me in a theological discussion 10 times out of 10. Like I know more than the average bear about the Bible since I've read it twice. But
yeah,
like
it's his hobby reading it. Like it's hard to know how many times he's read it, and then he'll read it, and then he'll he just loves watching other people's interpretations of it and compare and contrast, and he goes to Bible study 3 times a week. You know why? Can't find a fourth.
He just loves it.
Yeah,
and like that's
a quote. Like I didn't make that up. Like that's what he told me.
That's awesome. Like I wish.
I bet his nipples are
into it.
pinpricks.
Oh my god, tiny little ghost nipples with it.
You can't even see them.
Refrigerator filled with Dasani.
Son, your mama's nipples disappeared in 1987.
I'm not talking about my mom. Keep it nice. Keep it nice.
You wouldn't even believe where they were when you started.
Yeah, don't talk about my mom.
They covered half of the titty.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
apologize.
Oh,
We're talking about the Bible, and I know Tucker isn't saved, so
damn it!
hopefully this compels him. So today I'm going to tell the story of Samson.
My
Now,
mom loves this
Samson
segment.
is an Old Testament figure. And most people think, I know Samson can't cut your hair, gets with Delilah. Nay. They don't know the whole story of Samson. And
strong man.
It's longer, but there aren't necessarily more lessons. You got to look for them. So it begins in the prequel stage of Samson, going to his parents. So as with many things for the Jews, they did something that pissed God off, and God said, fuck you, you're going out of my presence again, go be slaves to some other people. And so they're some time into that. All the Israelites and Jews are really upset and just waiting for that next judge or prophet to come down and pull them out of this muck. And so one day, this guy named, the fuck was his name? Manoah. We're going to call him Mano from now on for short. Mano and his wife were just a random poor couple of Jews, very poor Israelites, and one day an angel came down in angel form to Manoah's wife and said, hey, you're about to give birth to someone who's going to totally change the direction of this tribe. And she's like, oh, that's awesome. And he says, yeah, it is. Now, all you got to do is make sure you don't smoke, don't drink, don't eat any grapes, nothing fermented, no mixed fabrics. You're a Jew, you know the rules. She goes, yeah, I know. I got it all planned out. Just don't do any of that, and then you'll have a son. He's going to do some fantastic things. Angel poofs away. She goes back to her husband, Mano, and is like, you will not believe what happened. And I'm going to read in the NIV Bible, the New International Version. This is exactly what she says, and I'm going to say it in Trump's voice because it makes sense. A man of God came to me. He looked like an angel of God. Very awesome. That's what she said in the Bible. She goes up, says it was very awesome, and the husband goes, oh my God, so all you got to do is not drink or smoke or anything, and then this kid's gonna come out good? She goes, yeah. He goes, all right, well, what do we do afterward? When the kid's here, how do we raise him then? She goes, oh, I didn't ask him that. Shit. Should we call him back? It's like an angel. You can't call him back. And so he goes to the temple, prays, and goes, please send someone else here and tell us how to raise the kid. We get it. Don't make a little fetal alcohol syndrome baby. But after he's born, how do we make sure he becomes a good dude and does all the things you want? And so a few days later, a man, regular old looking man, really an angel, comes down the road, talks to Mano, goes, hey, the Lord pushed me to come to you and tell you that all you have to do for your child is make sure that a razor never touches his head or any part of his body. A razor is in shaving, removing hair. And also make sure that your wife abides by all those rules I said before. And he was like, okay, yeah, it's not that helpful, but you are just a guy, you're not an angel, so I guess this is how God wants me to figure it out. Okay, whatever. He doesn't know this guy's an angel. He goes, well, at the very least, let me be hospitable. Stay with me for dinner. And the angel, who's not letting on, goes, no, I don't want to stay for dinner. He goes, I insist. You must stay for dinner. And the angel goes, if you're going to, or I have a goat. We'll kill the goat and we'll eat it together. He goes, I'm not going to stay for dinner, but if I do stay, as you're asking me, take that goat and sacrifice it to the Lord. And Mano is like, oh yeah, like this goat, my only goat. You want me to burn my own? Do you look around? We don't have a lot of goats. We've got one goat. This is our food for the next month.
Can't be fiddle fucking our goats to death.
Yeah, no, we have one goat. I was planning on eating this for a while, but yeah, I guess I'll just burn it. I'll just burn it for God because you're telling me to. Have you looked around my house? Have you looked around my 1-bedroom dirt floor thatched roof house? Do you smell salmon in here? We don't have any fish. That's my wife's Bronze Age pussy you're smelling. It's horrible in here. We have nothing to eat, and you're asking me to sacrifice this goat and burn it to you. And so he goes, he burns the goat begrudgingly, and he also burns some grain with it because the Lord is notorious for needing a side. And, after all that is burned, the guy just leaves. They're hungry, and 9 months later, out pops Happy Samson, ready to take on the world. And as with most Bible stories, it doesn't talk about the childhood. It goes straight to the adulthood of the character. So now we're early 20s, pussy slaying Samson. He's got long hair like a rock star. And so he's
Fabio.
He's perfect. He's Fabio. Picture him like that, a little more matted and nasty, and a beard because you can't shave anywhere. And so he is.
It's no manscaping.
Yeah. And so he is.
Oh God.
He's trolling around this city of Timnah looking for Strange, and he comes across this lady, and he's totally infatuated with her. He fucking loves her. And so he goes back, but she's a Philistine. That's the problem. She's not Jewish. She's a Philistine. And they are very much in competition with each other right now, these two tribes. And the Philistines are much stronger and larger. And so it's not something you want to tango with. And so he goes back to his family and he goes, hey, I found this woman. I want her as my wife. So I need you to go there and get her for me. Because that was back when women were treated appropriately as property instead of like having to pretend to care about what they say. And so now they go, the dad goes, Oy vey, son, you're going to go and find someone who's not Jewish? My goodness. No, there's plenty of good women right around here. Look at Rachel. And he goes, Rachel, she looks like a fucking sundial with that schnoz. No, I'm not going for Rachel. I'm going for that Philistine woman, that sexy bitch right over there. And so the dad goes, okay, yeah, I'll back that. He goes back to the family on the way. Goes back to the woman's family he's interested in order to relay to her that, all right, wedding's on. And on the way, he's by himself. A lion leaps out of the brush, comes to attack him. The Lord imbues him with, that strength that he has from his hair, and he tears the lion apart, like the way you would a goat was the example in the Bible, which apparently is like, you ready for goat? Like, no. And so he tore the lion apart, left it there, and miraculously, like, if I killed a lion, that would be in my Tinder bio, that would be in my Twitter bio, that would be my permanent Facebook status, it would be on my resume. Everyone would know. He didn't tell anyone. And it was weird because he was a braggadocious fella. And he continues on, tells his woman, hey, wedding's on, I got to go back to my people, grab my posse, my friend's family, and then we'll meet you back here, have the whole shindig. So he heads back, grabs his family, and as they're moving back towards the wedding party, which is they're going to the woman's place in the Philistinian territory, I don't know what it would be called. And on the way back, they see that same lion carcass. And the lion carcass is decomposed a bit. And there are bees swarming all around it. And so Samson, in what it can only be described as an insane person's maneuver, goes over to the hollowed out carcass of this lion where the bees are, dips his hands into the carcass, and retrieves 2 big old handfuls of honey. And so the rest of the walk there, he's eating honey out of his hands on the way to his own wedding. And to set the stage, this is a man who lives in the year 1, who has never showered. He has never been allowed to cut a hair from his head, and he's eating honey out of his hands on the way to his wedding. There's never been a stickier human being in history than Samson on this walk. It's like, it's not bad enough that you have, I lived 500 years before Christ shits every day. You're going to eat 2 handfuls of honey on the way to your wedding? You goddamn maniac. And so he eats his honey. It's disgusting and sticky by the time he gets there. They get there, though, and it goes off without a hitch for the most part. Like, Samson's dad was, like, pissed because he was like, you're going to associate with these uncircumcised folks? But Samson, like, convinced him. He's like, Dad, believe it or not, it never crossed the minds of these savages to bring a sharp stone to the genitals of young boys. It's like, that's horrific. It's terrible. It's like, I'll get over it, And so they get over it, and they have the wedding. It's a nice little occasion. And after the wedding, they're all sitting around in a powwow. And Samson goes to the relatives of his wife, the Philistines, and goes, hey, I'll tell you a riddle. And if you can riddle me that, I'll give you 30 outfits of linen. If you can't figure it out, though, you got to give me 30 outfits of linen. And they're like, seems like a pretty reasonable thing. All right, let's do it. And so he tells the riddle of, and I read it, out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. Now, obviously, this was him talking about out of the eater, the lion, honey comes, that's sweet, and out of the lion, something strong, something sweet, like that kind of shit. But it's cheating. You can't make a riddle based on an experience that only you know about and then expect people to understand. Like, that's like the self-actualization of a 2-year-old, where you think if you saw something, everybody's seen it. And everybody will get it. Like, that's retardation. So my contention is that he was cheating.
Okay.
He was cheating from the start, is my contention. Samson was. He was giving a riddle in bad faith.
It's like playing peekaboo and covering your own eyes.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Woody, I've got an interesting riddle about my 7th grade birthday party. Now, no one in the details or the tendrils going out that'll give you hints. Like, it's not fair. And so he gives this riddle, and nobody can figure it out because they weren't there. And so, like, 2 days later, the family of the woman go, hey, you got to get this fucking riddle because I don't know if you've looked around, but we're not exactly running a fucking Courtyard Marriott. We don't have linen to hand out. Like we took this assuming we know the riddle. We're pretty good riddlers, but we don't have any linen. We're going to be humiliated and embarrassed, and we're not really on friendly terms with the rest of their tribe, just this family now. And so she goes, okay, I'll go do it. And so for the next 5 days, the word nag is used in the Bible. She nags and cries and bitches for so many days in a row that eventually Samson on the last day goes, yeah, okay, the answer is the lion. The answer is the lion and honey inside it, okay? Please, oh my God, week one of our marriage. Golly, I should have listened to my parents, you dumb whore. And he's furious. And 20 minutes later, she leaves. 20 minutes later, all the Philistines come back and they're like, Samson, we figured out your riddle. And he's like, did you? Did you figure out my riddle? What is it? And so they told him, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than lion? Which apparently was the 2 questions that aren't a riddle, or the answer to a riddle that was 2 questions that weren't. Nah.
It's Jeopardy.
These ancient people didn't understand what riddles were.
He answered the question. Anyway.
Yeah. And so they give him that, and he goes, cheated. You cheated. I just gave my wife that answer, and she went and gave it to you. And so Samson stood up calmly, and then he murdered 30 people. With his bare hands, he went around the camp, and he murdered 30 people, and then he left saying, someday I'll get my vengeance. So at this point, Samson is a terrorist at this point. You know, he does not take kindly to those other folks. And so from there,
Samson is
goes
Jewish.
home.
He killed the terrorists. Correction.
Yeah. He spends some time like mulling his own shit over in the desert or whatever while everybody else goes back. He eventually returns home and goes to his dad. Hey, I want to talk to my wife. He goes, your wife? That Philistine woman who lied to you and you killed 30 of her family members? No, when I was leaving, I said I gave her to someone else. Like, no, that's not your wife anymore. And Samson goes, God, fucking bullshit. Well, then I definitely need to get my vengeance. You know, she's dead to me. And so he does what any sane person would do. He's got to get vengeance on these Philistines. They're stronger. They're more powerful. What do? What you do is you go into the woods and you catch 300 foxes. 300 foxes. Have you ever tried to catch one fox? It's fucking impossible. You're not going to catch 300 foxes. It's insanity. And so he catches 300 foxes. And then he does another sane thing. He takes them 2 by 2 and ties their tails together. And then once he has 150 paired off fox pairings, you know, very hard to manage. You settle down. He puts torches in the night and ties those into the tails and lights them and releases them all over Philistine territory and all of their crops. And so the next morning when they wake up, they're like, there's a lot of burned foxes and no crops left. And there's a torch in all the foxes' tails. And this is very methodically done. A serial killer is in our midst. Is this that terrorist Samson? Is this that terrorist Samson that we're all so scared of all the time with the strength of 10 men and the temperament of a 1-year-old? Like, is this the man? And so they're terrified of Samson because he just destroyed everything. And so the Philistines go back and they go, they go to the woman that he initially married, the Philistine woman and her father, and they're so mad they just burn them too, probably with the last remaining pair of foxes running around. And they burn those 2 to death. And then I'm trying to remember what happened here. Sorry. It's so in depth.
He couldn't.
Oh yeah, I remember. No. Now, yeah, you couldn't just throw torches.
No, he had to
You
tie
didn't want to throw a
foxes.
torch when you could swing 2 foxes around like a madman and hurl them. But and after he did this, after he did all the fox shenanigans, he went and retreated into a cave in the wilderness and just hung out there. And so after that, all the Philistines, like a few thousand of them, are like, this is horse shit. We are marching to the Jewish camp of Judea, and we're going to make them give us Samson. So they march over there and they go, where the fuck is Samson? He just tied a bunch of hundreds of foxes together and burned our crops down after killing 30 of us for cheating on a cheat riddle of his. And they go, we don't know where he is. Frankly, we'd be happy if you caught him. He's causing a lot of mischief, and he's not reflecting well. He's terrible PR. We're a very small tribe, and he's causing a lot of mischief out there, and people keep coming up to us. And they go, okay, well, we believe you. We're going to search anyway. They search. They go, all right, we totally believe you, but we're way stronger than you. So while we're here, we're just going to conquer you. And they're like, fuck, we should have seen that coming. And so they got conquered right there too. And so then 1,000 Jews from Judea go to that cave, and they go to Samson, and they go, we got to turn you in. And Samson's like, you couldn't turn me in if you wanted to, but here, how about this? You tie me up, and you bring me back there to those thousands of guys, and you say, we got him. We got the guy for you. He's right here. And then I'll burst out of there. And then they go, yo, dude, that's an incredible idea. And then like Noah, you can throw him a sword. And Ezekiel, you can throw him a shield. And Samson goes, no, I'll use the jaw of an ass. And then they all go, yeah, whatever you want to do, man. Just remember, like, we're on your team. And he goes, yeah, jaw of an ass. This is a good idea. And so they take him over there, bound up, and they get him close enough to the Philistines, and they go, here he is. And he gets close, and he bursts out with his ass bone jaw and smashes 1,000 of them to death. 1,000 people he murders with the jawbone of an ass.
Well, he was right.
1,000. Yeah. And as they're watching it, Ezekiel's like, well, we appear quite the fools. he really didn't need the sword and shield. And so after he's finished massacring 1,000 people dripping with blood, not like in movies like Braveheart or Predator where there's like drips of their own blood a little bit. I mean like half a second after you get out of the pool, that level of drippage in blood, there's a snail trail of all blood types smeared around this land. And he comes back up to them, and all the Jews are like, frankly, Samson, half an hour ago, we were ready to turn you in. Never before has there been such a political turn in an environment. Raise your hand if you don't want Samson to be in charge. Everyone wants you to be in charge, Samson. And so Samson, dripping with blood, decides he's going to be in charge. And so after that, though, he decides he needs a little more, just a touch more vengeance.
Jesus Christ. All they did was cheat on a riddle, for fuck's sake.
Dude, that's all throughout the Old Testament. They'll be like, and someone of the Ammonites stole a goat, and the Jewish Old Testament God is like, and he smote 50,000 of them for it. It's insane. But it now gets to the point that people are more familiar with. Samson and Delilah. So a little more time passes, and he falls head over heels for this lady Delilah, and she's a fox. Like they were like back in the day, they were the Brangelina of the day, and so it wasn't like a relationship. Everybody fucking knew Samson was plugging Delilah, and so the Philistines go to Delilah and are like, "Hey, you got to give us info on how he gets his strength, because we got to get rid of this. We're rightly looking for vengeance here. We've lost thousands of people to this madman. Look at that. We don't know where he is. We're whispering right now. He's terrifying." And so they basically convince her to be on like a little secret agent. And so she goes to him one night after they bang, and she goes, "Samson, what gives you all your strength?" And he goes, "Well, if they'd only known to tie my hands with 7 unused bowstrings, they would have never had that problem. I would have been as weak as any other man." And so during the night, she tied his hands with 4 unused bowstrings, woke up to, or 7, I'm sorry. 7 unused bowstrings, and the Philistines are there waiting, ready, anticipating picking him up, and he wakes up, bursts out, and murders a dozen or so of them. This time in self-defense, fair enough. Yeah. And then I guess they go back to bed being like, why I oughta, to Delilah. And the next day, he tells her this rinse and repeat. Why would you lie to me last night? And he doesn't ask, why'd you try to have me murdered and captured? He just goes with it because he's an idiot. And he goes, all right, well, if you use like brand new rope, that'll get me. They've only ever used rope on me. That's why I can burst out. And so they do that. Once again, bursts out, and the 12 anticipating and terrified Philistines are murdered.
They're like, we know what happens here, guys. We didn't want to be here.
Oh, we're group 2? It's always group 3 or 4 that gets them. Like, and that's, damn it.
We saw what you did just now. I don't.
Oh.
The bodies are still here.
Samson, I told you to move them. And so he murders all of them. Then I guess Delilah once again gets off scot-free. The next day he tells her, if you braid my hair in this way, I'll be helpless. So she does that. The third group of a dozen or so Philistines stand up. He's like, I'm not even tied up this time. Blah, 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 blah. And it beats the shit out of him, kills him. And then finally, she badgers him enough that he goes, my hair is the source of my strength. If you cut it off, I got nothing. Jesus Christ, will you shut the fuck up? Like, Samson has terrible choice in women, but it's good to see some things never change. So the next day, he's sleeping, or next evening, he's sleeping. She snips his hair off. Then the Philistines come in, and he stands up to fight him, and he's just a normal dude now. He doesn't have his superpowers. God said, I'm only interested in lustrous locks. You know, that's all I'm in for. And so they come in, they pin him down, they immediately gouge his eyes out and blind him. And so he can't be a threat anymore. And then they drag him off and they give Delilah all sorts of sweets and spoils. And so then they take him blind and beaten and a regular man, and they put him on a grain mill where you're just like what they would use donkeys for. Like you're just pushing this thing around and around and around. And he does that for months. And I guess everybody forgot, let's give this guy regular haircuts. Because a couple months later, there's a big Philistine celebration, much similar to when we caught Bin Laden. like everybody's like, yeah, we got him, yeah. Like they're all in this big, beautiful building. All the Philistines. There's 3,000 people on the roof, and all the elites underneath. And they say, bring out Samson, bring him out, bring out this murderer. And they're jeering at him because everyone there has someone they know who's been murdered by this animal. And they put him up there, they throw stuff at him, and they go, get out of here. And he collapses. You know, his hair's gotten a little longer, though. And he stands up, still blind, and he goes, please let me lean up against a pillar. And so they put him up against a pillar to lean there. And he summons God and says, God, with my last act, please let me bring this down upon the Philistines. And so he puts one hand on one pillar, one hand on the other, and he uses his last bit of strength and collapses it and murders another 5,000 Philistines with his final breath.
Well,
and this is the story that I used to guide my entire life. In the words of Kyle. Yeah.
Seems just.
yeah.
That's
Tucker
first-
wasn't
the
a
first-
believer before that story,
No,
but
the
now
first 5 minutes of that story, I was like, I'm bored. And then it just, Samson, he really just kept going, huh?
I
Either had a
wonder.
little setup.
I wonder if after about 7,000 murders, if he felt like he had gotten revenge for them
No.
cheating on the riddle yet.
I can't believe somebody would cheat on this riddle. Yeah, if there was ever a time to think, man, the Bible is what a wonderful story that could be animated and made into.
Yeah.
It's now. I want to see an
that
animated
was
Bible series.
That and
I'm
Job.
pretty sure it was.
Oh, was it?
It was a
Oh, I'm
movie,
sure.
a live action movie. I saw it.
I don't want a live
I
action.
don't remember it
movie.
quite
I
like
want,
that.
I want
Well,
Old
sorry that one
Testament
took so long,
animations.
but I wanted
No, it
to
was
start from the
great.
birth.
You made up for it. You made up for it. It really came to fruition. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And I hope you learned something.